At 95.7%, the Kansas City area has the highest percentage of people experiencing chronic homelessness, living unsheltered of any major U.S. city. This is according to a report published by HUD. That's the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This rate is worse than places known for significant homeless populations like Los Angeles, which ranks second at 86.6%. This was published yesterday in the Kansas City Star with the headline, Kansas City ranked worst for handling chronic homelessness out of all major U.S. cities. Now, I could sit here and I could spend a few minutes using this to dunk on Kansas City. I'm not going to do that, actually, because the purpose of this article is to advocate for low-barrier homeless shelters.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point here. And this article just happens to be published a couple of weeks after you in Lenexa, you, the grassroots citizens in Lenexa, said, no, we don't want a homeless shelter right there at the old La Quinta, across from the Costco. We don't want that at I-35 and 75th Street. Sorry, we're done. And you stood up, and your city council, thank goodness, listened to you, and the county commission, led by Mike Kelly, did not get his way. So then magically, we're sitting here a couple of weeks later, and the Kansas City Star writes this piece. Now, you might view this as just a news piece, and, oh, well, geez, that's too bad. We should do a better job for our homeless. There's a purpose here, and the purpose is to get low-barrier shelters funded by the government into your neighborhoods. That's it, John. It's very much that simple.
We could just get a low-barrier jail for the murder rate.
Well, we could do that,
but
too.
That's a side topic.
Yeah, I mean, they're working on that. They'll get around to it when they can.
No, it's interesting that the statistics seem to be massaged in a way that I'm not buying it without further inquiry myself, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of Portland and Oakland and places like that on the West Coast.
Well,
so are we doing this per capita thing, or as if
correct.
We've gone around and counted
Yes.
noses?
Yes,
Yeah,
that is
okay.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
So in Los Angeles, there are 30,000 people chronically homeless. We have 280 here in Kansas City.
Oh, there's 30,000 in Los Angeles, is there?
Yeah, 30,000.
On which street?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
So, yes, it is done on a per capita basis, absolutely. And this number of the percentage who are chronically homeless is really just a number based on how many people don't want to go to a shelter.
Right.
That's all this is, right? So in this Kansas City Star article, they interview a couple of people who are homeless here in the area. And they talk to them about how, they've been on the streets, why they're on the streets, how they don't shower, and it's kind of like this woe is me thing. Well, we know that there are plenty of shelters, and I will give a shout out to a shelter that does great work in this town that we do work with as well, and that's City Union Mission, who celebrated 100 years in Kansas City this year without a dime from the taxpayer. That helps homeless individuals put a roof over their heads for the short term. They have a place to sleep at night, and they have a long-term care facility where they want to get you. They want to get you to the long-term care facility where then you can get back to be a functioning member of society. Now, of course, there are rules. They are Christian-based. You cannot be drunk. You cannot be high. Like, sorry, if you just want to get drunk and do drugs and then find a place to crash on the government's dime, well, that's not going to be a place like City Union Mission. And the government certainly should not be funding that with our taxpayer dollars. So I'm not going to use this article to be like, oh my gosh, Kansas City's doing a horrible job. No, because the point of the article here is to push the propaganda that Kansas City desperately needs to, with your tax dollars, fund a low-barrier homeless shelter in Johnson County, and then maybe another one in Kansas City, Missouri. You get one on either side of the state line, and that's how we solve this issue for the 280 homeless people who are chronically out there on the streets. Now, here's the problem, though. When you read some of the quotes from some of the individuals here in this article, they talk about how they don't feel safe where they're at. Here's one story. Talks about a guy named Bill. He doesn't want to stay outside for another winter. He's hoping help from outreach workers with the city council or with the city could get him a mailing address for paperwork that could eventually lead to permanent housing. He doesn't always feel safe. The area he lives in is known as Killer's Alley. Homicides and other violent crimes have happened nearby. Bill said he has to watch who he trusts and carefully pick his friends. Well, clearly Bill, and I'm just going to be blunt here, is not desperate enough. Because there are opportunities from groups who will help him in this town. There are generous organizations who will help him in this town. And the angle from the Kansas City Star is like, well, there's nothing for Bill to do without the government getting involved. The government must help Bill. How can we help Bill without the almighty government being there for a handout? John, what do we do?
Like the late, great Paul Harvey used to talk about the rest of the story.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a little bit more to Bill's
well,
story.
I'm sure
correct?
there is.
As you imply.
Yes, this is largely propaganda. Then there's Linda, 67 years old, worked as a forklift operator before retiring. Her landlord died, and the house that she lived in for more than 5 years was sold, and she had 30 days to vacate. She went out, she bought a tent, and she ended up on the streets. Once again, this is the story that's being told. And she goes on the note saying to the Kansas City Star, quote, "It's tough because I'm filthy all the time." She says that she washes up in a nearby creek. She said she wishes the city or an organization could provide portable showers. You can go to City Union Mission and shower every day. They will you will get a warm shower at City Union Mission. Once again, the goal of the article is to act like the only way that anything can be done about this is by you spending your taxpayer dollars on it and the government taking care of these individuals. And that is simply not true. Because if tax dollars and the government were the answer, Los Angeles would not have 30,000 people on the streets every day. Los Angeles would not be second on the list behind Kansas City when it comes to percentage of people who are homeless who are living unsheltered. If the government involvement and government expenditures on homeless individuals was the answer to cure it, LA would not be number 2 to Kansas City. So the whole premise, the whole point of the article gets blown up by the facts in the article. But the Kansas City Star is hoping you don't actually come to that conclusion. The Kansas City Star and the minions that basically ask them to probably write this piece are hoping that you just get emotional about this, that you don't use facts over feelings, that you simply use feelings over facts. And you say, oh, this is such a shame. Why doesn't the city do anything about this? Of course, without knowing about the great organizations who are doing something about this on a regular basis and are doing it through the private donations and volunteerism and great work of so many here in Kansas City. 913-408-7957. On the text line, Pete, great job at the event last night with Winsome Sears. The main purpose, I believe, of the KC Star article is to promote the No Barrier Shelter. Was Mike Kelly involved in getting the article published? Yeah, he may have very well been involved. I cannot confirm or deny that. Amazingly, the sources don't speak to me at the Kansas City Star, but none of it would surprise me. John's in Grain Valley. What's up, John? How are you, buddy?
I'm well. Pete, this also ties back to your first segment on Kamala. It's never enough. You can't apologize enough. You can never give enough for the homeless because it never ends. Because if you cured homelessness, oh, my God, they'd be out of a job. But every year the tax dollars, you get 3 to 5% more and more and more. And once that happens, it never stops. Same thing with Kamala. We have to apologize. Okay, I apologize. Well, that's not enough. Okay, I really apologize. Well, that's not enough. What will it take to apologize? Reparations. You've got to pay somebody. With what? Tax dollars. How does that happen? Well, we'll set up a commission, and they'll figure it out. Well, what happens with the commission? Well, they'll all make $150K. There'll only be 10 of them, though. But they'll need a budget and an office, and this will go on and on. And there's no end, and people don't connect it. This is your money. This is truly your money. And with a $35 trillion debt, Do you really want to keep adding more and more and more?
Well said there, John.
That's almost a tirade Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, you got it out of the way, my man. Very nice work. That is a tirade Tuesday. It is coming up here at 8:35 on KCMO Talk Radio. As somebody noted on the text line as well, Pete, 95.7% of those experiencing homelessness are living unsheltered in Kansas City, same as your frequency, 95.7. Good job. I didn't even put that together early on a Tuesday morning. Well done. Very nice work. All right, we are going to get to more of your calls, including, I think, what could be our caller of the day. John is actively screening calls, and I have a gentleman on the line here who was homeless and is going to share his story coming up next right here on 95.7 FM KCMO. Kansas City doing a worse job by the numbers than Los Angeles, according to a report by HUD, Housing and Urban Development, that says 95.7% of the Kansas City unsheltered population, as they call it, we used to call them vagrants, then they were homeless, now they're unsheltered, are experiencing chronic homelessness. That rate is worse than Los Angeles, which ranks second at 86.6%. So I believe the purpose of this article from the Kansas City Star is to advocate for low barrier shelters in and around Kansas City. Gene is in Kansas City. He was once homeless. He joins us on KCMO. Hi, Gene. Thanks for calling in. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So what's your story and what's your take here?
So I just wanted to call in because I do completely agree with you. We don't need another homeless shelter. There are so many out there that are willing to help people. I was homeless for about 2.5 years, actually on the streets in the winter, no shelter at all. And partially some of that was because I didn't know what was out there. But as soon as I found out that there was help, I took advantage of that. And it is basically, if you don't, you want to get high and you want to keep getting drunk if you're not taking advantage of these programs. It took me about 1.5 years to get through these programs, and they helped me get therapy and Medicaid and just helped me get back on my feet. And now I'm making $60,000 a year. I have my kids back. I'm about to get married, and my life is good because I made the choice to get off the streets.
God bless you, man. That is awesome. So where did you go to get help, out of curiosity?
So I've actually been to 2 places. There's one called Welcome House.
Yeah, I know Welcome House well.
Yeah, they're a very, very good place. And then there's another gentleman, his name's Mr. Wu. He runs a program called AHH, called Artists Helping the Homeless. He's got multiple different programs on the Kansas and Missouri side. And he also works with all the other homeless shelters like City Union Mission and Welcome House and all kinds of different places. He is a godsend. So.
Wow. So, and how did you end up? Did these places require you to be sober to be there, or what led you to basically say, I'm going to stop getting high and stop getting drunk?
So, man, I mean, it was just a choice. You know, once you're out there so long, you're either, man, it's a hard mental choice to stay out there. You know, and you just got to do it for yourself. You want to get better. That's all it is. If you want to stay out on the streets and keep getting high, then that's what you're going to do. But if you want to be a functioning member of society, there are all kinds of ways to get yourself back up. How long
you been back on your feet now, Gene?
So I've actually been on my feet for about 2 years now.
That's awesome, man. And have you always been in the Kansas City area?
Yes.
That's great. That is just great. So I want to ask you then the mindset with these low barrier shelters. If you have these low barrier shelters where those who are homeless can just show up and be drunk or high and crash for the night and then come and go as they please, that doesn't really encourage anybody to change, right? Or improve themselves.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. There is no point to that, right? I mean, it's called harm reduction is what it is. But in a sense, you're not, like you said, you're not helping anybody. You're just enabling them, right? Now, I understand the thinking behind it. You know, they want to get these people off the street. They want to help in some way. but they're really not helping them.
No.
If you can just come in and get high and get drunk and then leave, what are you doing for them? You know?
That's so true. That is absolutely true. Well, Gene, how'd you find the show, by the way? You a new listener?
I've been listening for a couple months now. I just really appreciate y'all.
Well, thank you, Gene. I'm so happy for you and the family, and you got the kids back, and you're working hard, you're making money, and that's the American dream, brother. We appreciate you calling in.
All right. Thank you much. You have a great morning.
You as well. There you go. Gene in Kansas City on KCMO. I'm not familiar with the AHH, but I found it here. Artists Helping the Homeless, AHH.org is their website. And then Welcome House does a lot of work here in the Kansas City area. Tom Watson's very involved with them and that organization. And we have some folks who used to work with us here at Cumulus Kansas City who were very involved in the Welcome House and their organization. They've got a great brand new 28,000 square foot recovery center right here in Kansas City. They raised, I think it was $14 million to get that thing off the ground. And their big thing is obviously recovery and those who are addicts. But all this stuff weaves together, right? And that's the thing that I think those who think the government is the answer don't really understand. That people who are homeless are not actually just people who can't find a place to live. It's people who are dealing with mental health issues, addictions, and we all want to help them. We do. I mean, we all have people in our lives, I certainly do, who have suffered tremendously with addiction. And some end up homeless if they don't have a great support system around them. But that doesn't get solved with a low barrier shelter where homeless individuals who have a lot of other issues can come and go as they please, being drunk, high, whatever it might be, no strings attached. That doesn't actually help somebody hit rock bottom and then figure out, you know what, now's the time, like Gene just talked about. I basically got sick of being miserable. And that leads you to want to turn your life around. And you pray that everybody gets to that point. Some people don't. But there's not a low barrier shelter that's going to solve this. There's not a taxpayer program that's going to solve this. And Gene's story is a great encapsulation of just that. And he might be our caller of the day. We'll see. He's the early front runner here.